At the end of December 1978, severe anomalous frosts came to the Soviet Union. In many parts of the European part, the temperature dropped to -50 degrees Celsius. In Arkhangelsk, the thermometer showed -43 degrees. Before you watch this video, I'm going to ask you to support my channel with a thumbs up. It won't cost you anything, but it means a lot to me and my channel. Thank you. In Leningrad, 39 degrees below zero, in Moscow, 37, and in Moscow suburbs, 45 degrees below zero on the Celsius scale. This Arctic frost not only spoiled the New Year's celebrations for hundreds of thousands of Soviet people, but also created truly extreme conditions in which many had to simply survive. In December 1978, many city dwellers noticed that the winter was snowless. People in the countryside understood that this threatened crop problems, since snow cover was necessary to preserve winter crops, especially if frost came. These fears came true on December 28, when a powerful anticyclone from the Kara Sea brought a severe cold snap, which spread from the north of the country to the European part of the country. Ultrapolar intrusion lowered thermometer columns to -37 degrees in Moscow on the night of December 30 to -48 degrees in Tatarstan and the Urals, and in the east of the Komi Republic forecasters recorded -58 degrees. According to an expert, such severe frosts in the European part of the Soviet Union occurred once in 50 or even 80 years. Many people compared the anomalously cold weather to that of 1940 and 1941, and the United States also drew attention to the harsh winter in the Soviet Union. The New Russian Word, a newspaper for immigrants published in New York, devoted an entire article to the topic, musing about a new impending ice age. On television and radio broadcasts, Soviet citizens were advised not to let their children outdoors and on New Year's Eve to lay off alcohol so as not to provoke accidents and conserve the body's energy resources. In regions where the temperature dropped to 50 degrees Celsius at the enterprises were reduced working days. Public utilities in many cities began a real disaster. The pipes could not stand attempts to raise the temperature of the water, and in Ulyanovsk, where the temperature dropped to -45 degrees, the central heating radiators burst. They could only be replaced after a week. In Moscow, on New Year's Eve, many districts reported blackouts, water pipes burst, and people were wrapped in warm clothes at cold radiators. Most people had no time to celebrate, so they turned on gas pipes, ovens, and electric fireplaces to stay warm and listened to the radio broadcasts that urged freezing citizens to conserve resources, but even these measures did not help. The walls of many apartments were covered with frost. The situation with intercity passenger trains was not simple, as people had to wait for hours for their trains to arrive because of broken wires. Many Soviet citizens had no champagne or regular lemonade on their tables. The cold caused tens of thousands of bottles to burst in frozen warehouses. Bread disappeared from many stores and was no longer delivered at all because of the abnormal cold. The severe cold caused serious damage to agriculture. The frost killed a huge number of orchards, which resulted in no harvest of plums, apples, and pears in 1979. The abnormal frost provoked many emergencies throughout the country. In the Turkic region of the Republic of Tatarstan, a group of tourists who came from Pavlodar, high school students, arrived here on December 29 to do a ski trip to the Lenin sites with a terminus in the city of Kazan, fell into an icy trap. They had to walk 120 kilometers along the frozen bed of the Volga, and on their way the tourists were caught by a severe frost, and it became impossible to move forward. The teacher, who led the tour group, sent 2 schoolchildren back for help. Fortunately, on their way they found an abandoned forester's house, where they were half frozen in the morning of December 30th. The local tractor driver found them and informed the police of the freezing tourists. To save the tour group on a snowmobile the police left. In different places they managed to pick up the freezing tourists, after which they built a large fire in a ravine. The police tried to warm the students, then evacuated them to the village Dolgaya Polyana. Unfortunately, no victims were avoided. One of the participants of the route was killed. The abnormal frost almost caused a radiation disaster in the Urals. In December 1978, the region turned into a real Arctic. Sverdlovsk region was surrounded by icy air. Thermometers showed -47 degrees Celsius. Because of burst pipes, dense fog enveloped city streets. Everything around was covered with a layer of ice. In such a frost, on the night of December 31st at Beloyarsk nuclear power plant, a fire broke out. According to the basic theory, the reinforced concrete structures of the machinery hall could not withstand the temperature difference, and it was almost minus 50 degrees below zero outside, and it was a real heat inside. Huge beams fell on the generator of the first power unit, puncturing the steam line, after which the oil block caught fire. The fire began to spread through the cable tunnels, and by some miracle, the hydrogen cooling cylinders installed next to the turbines were not affected, and when the fire brigades arrived, the main building of the unit was engulfed in flames. Meanwhile, due to the severe frost, the fire hoses were freezing to the ground and the fire had already engulfed the equipment. By that time, 300 buses and several railroad trains were prepared to evacuate the population. Fortunately, with incredible efforts, the fire was extinguished and it took 20 hours. The station continued to operate. After the new year, the frost began to ease, even though the severe cold held off for a short time and managed to cause domestic and environmental damage to the country. I thank you for watching. Your support is very important to me. Your comments and thumbs up motivate me to release new videos on interesting topics. Subscribe and turn on notifications. See you in the new videos.